We all recognize the importance of the agriculture sector and the role the agriculture sector plays in Nigeria economy. However, if we look at your three companies, easily over the last decade, together you've invested over $1 billion in the agriculture sector. So my first question to you is why and how?
Thank you very much, Kola. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my fellow panelists, it's important to reiterate at this point that people often talk about coming into Nigeria and the issues, the challenges and all that. But people never talk about the opportunities. And for us, we started, I will speak for Olam now. Olam came into Nigeria in 1989 and started as a trading company, trading in commodities, cocoa, cashew, sesame, ginger, cotton, and the likes. And since 1989, we have, technically become a very large behemoth. We have invested a lot in the agricultural value chain space. And just last week, I was telling you offset that Olam Nigeria won the Best Exporter Award. And that is at the second largest exporter after oil and gas in Nigeria.
I think for us, if you think about early man, from before there was education, before there was iPad, BlackBerry, etc., what men and women worried about was about food and shelter. So at the end of the day, everybody woke up from their houses and they just worried about food. Men went out to hunt for food. They built a house, and once they had that house, shelter, they spent the entire day foraging for food. The ladies may be on the farm, the men may be out hunting for meat, etc., etc. So from the time the human being was created, food and food security has always been paramount. So to the extent that food security is something that is also key in Africa and in Nigeria in particular, we felt there would be opportunities at infinitum. So we see our play in the food space as one where we are trying to ensure that we plug into the need to provide food security in this country. We have Africa ambitions, but it is the opportunities in Nigeria are so vast that we've not even finished tapping them before we begin to branch out into the rest of Africa.
I think the basic problem is that over time, people have looked at the agricultural space as a place that is challenging rather than looking at the opportunities therein. If one takes Nigeria as a country and you want to look at the various sectors in Nigeria and you want to find out where is there the greatest opportunity for investment, I think it's in agriculture. It's not a sector that has got 60% of the population employed in it. That's where you have the poorest of the poor. That's where you actually can double people's income just by doing simple things. So for us, rather than seeing the challenges in agriculture, we saw opportunities there. We saw, a situation where a country like ours was actually, a net importer of food and agricultural products, and we felt, even though we had the potential to actually be net exporters, so we saw an opportunity in which we could invest. And for farmers to actually do well, the beginning is to have the right kind of inputs. So that's why we started from that point. And today we are putting in the market appropriate fertilizers for farmers to use, and we're going beyond that to get involved in production. It's the entire value chain actually that needs to be strengthened. So really, there's a huge opportunity in the agricultural space. Luckily, at this point in time, government policies are tilting in the right direction in the space of agriculture. So it's creating the right atmosphere to create the transformation that is required.
Looking at the key sectors that you're playing in now and the subsectors of agriculture you'd look to play in, what are those key trends that you feel will impact the Nigerian agriculture sector today and say the next 10, 20 years?
Okay, for us at Olam, we've since found out that it is important not only to export raw cocoa, raw cashew, raw sesame and the likes. It's important, like you said, the agricultural value chain. I often listen to the Minister of Agriculture talking about the agricultural value chain, and of course the CBN governor at different fora talking about us being, for example, we have cassava, yet we import starch, and he says that he says that on a regular basis, and I said to myself, well, fair point. And that's why I will say that we at Olam, for example, have said to ourselves we need to be involved in that agricultural value chain cycle, which is why we have the largest cashew processing plant in Africa right now in Ilorin. On the other hand, government has said to themselves, we want to have a rice policy and all that. I will say this, we see we're on two sides of the coin for us. We, Olam, are the second largest importer of rice into Nigeria. And we said to ourselves, government wants to encourage rice production and all that, which is why we have in a place called Andori in Nasarawa State. For those who are familiar with the geography of Nigeria, that's in the axis of Benue Plateau axis, Benue Plateau, Nasarawa, Abuja axis. We have a 10,000 hectare farm there for rice production. And of course, for rice, it's a 5 to 7 year gestation period. So it's not something you do in a hurry. And of course, government policies must be favorable. Again, it's important to note that Olam International is in 65 countries. We started in Nigeria in 1989, like I told you, but we're in 65 countries and quoted on the Singaporean Stock Exchange. We're in 25 countries in Africa, 24 countries in Africa, and we're in 33 states, directly and indirectly in Nigeria. So we are very pan-world, pan-African, and pan-Nigerian. Okay, so everywhere we find ourselves in that agricultural space, we try to play in there. Nigerian economy has to move from that exporting raw cocoa, raw cashew, raw sesame. For those who don't know what sesame is what you call locally here Benin seed. They are used for toppings, all the burgers you eat and all that and all that. When sesame is properly hauled, it's now used for the toppings, for all your burgers and all. So we should be able to have those toppings rather than export them to the Indias of this world, the Thailands of this world, and Americas of this world, for them to make those toppings. But we'll get there. We're not particularly a very large burger consuming market. So for us, we get those products from the farm, from source, and we deliver to destination.
On the issue of trends, let's take, for example, I know you're very active in the wheat sector. Yep. Nigeria today imports the equivalent of the entire exports of Poland, who's the 6th largest wheat exporter in the world. What are some of the key trends you see in that sector, as well as other sectors that you're looking at?
I think to answer that question, I'd like to just draw the audience's attention to the food pyramid and why wheat and grain is very important. If you look at the food pyramid, at the base of it are cereals, and these are things that holds a man or woman in a day. It has a lot of carbohydrates. Can you hear me? All right, okay. It has a lot of carbohydrates, it has a lot of energy, and it's a key source of energy. Consumption is quite high, like 6 to 8 times servings a day. Then you move up to about the fruits and vegetables, then meats and proteins, meats and dairy, and at the top of it is oil and snacks. As you go up to the pyramid, the consumption gets less. So at the base of it are grains. Do we produce a lot of grains in Nigeria? Yes, we produce maize, we produce sorghum, we produce millet. We produce some wheat, but it's not good enough for consumption. Total about 100,000 tons a year. It's only good enough as feed wheat. So where is our biggest source for carbs in Nigeria? Apart from yams and a few other things, you need wheat. If you consume a lot of bread mostly comes from wheat flour. Of course, government recognizes that we're importing a lot of wheat, and I agree, there's a lot of forex spent on wheat a year, and there's a need to see what we can use locally to reduce that, and which is why we are plugging in firmly into the cassava policy of trying to get more cassava into our flour value chain and to our wheat value chain.
So you guys, your strategy is firmly rooted in the developing and making the smallholder farmer in Nigeria richer, more profitable. Why are you focused on that, and what are the trends you see in Nigerian agriculture?
First and foremost, it is important to understand that one key factor that one must look at closely before determining how to approach an agriculture space is the structure of the population. We've got 56 million individuals in farming in rural communities, and so it's an agriculture that will help Nigeria get out of dependency on imported product will be an agriculture that is focused on getting those people more productive rather than a system that would actually take them out of employment. Because what happens when if the objective is to have a small fraction of the population involved in agriculture, what we're saying is that we're going to let go a lot of the 56 million people from farming. So from that standpoint, we want to score both an economic goal and a social goal, and that's why our strategy is to work with the smallholders to increase their output. And I'd like to add that even though government is doing a lot and is doing as much as they can do, we in the private sector in the agricultural space have decided also to complement. Right now, Notori hasn't left extension work to government alone. We've got over 2,000 private extension people across 30 states of the country today who are educating smallholders to improve their production. And then a good number of farmers, over 100,000, that have basically doubled their yields by learning new skills.